Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage in the beautiful sunny state of Maine this morning. Had a little rain overnight, very beneficial. Woke up to the fog lifting and sunny skies have taken over. And the foliage is probably halfway to full glory. It's been a crazy week. In what I think was my last video, I alluded to the fact that let's just tell you the whole story. Probably 2 weeks ago now, I answered an ad on Marketplace for a Lakewood scatter shield out in the western Maine town of Fryeburg. I drove out to buy it and made a new friend, which often happens when you're amongst car people. We definitely speak the same language. He's 3 or 4 years older than me. Great guy. I bought the Bellhausen, and I continued on to a mutual friend of ours, come to find out his house, and he called me back while I was there, said he'd found a battery box from my 56 wagon, swing by and get it on the way home. And he had some items I was interested in, not this 55 Chevy. I hadn't even seen this yet. Didn't even know it existed. And he wanted to come down to my place sometime and see if we could do some trading on this. It's a 79 Trans Am that he had sitting next to his garage. The following week, just like this one, it was super busy and it almost didn't happen. We almost didn't make a time, but eventually we found a mutual day. And he said he'd be down in the morning, and he shows up with this. Now, when I look at a vehicle, be it at a car show or wherever, even my own stuff, I look for things that I want to change, or things I like and don't like about it. Probably normal, probably everybody does it. I go around and look at things and, geez, I would have done it this way, or wow, I never thought of doing it that way. It's not always negative. A lot of times it's very positive. That's my favorite times, when I see something that I can, copy in my own work and learn something, or even seeing stuff you don't like teaches you something. So he pulled in with this car, parked it in the upper driveway. I went up to, we did a walking around and talking about doing the other deal on the Trans Am, which never happened. And then we went up and I walked around this 3 or 4 times thinking, told him he does really nice work. He built this car in 14 months in his one-car garage. And I've now seen pictures of what it looked like when he started. He pretty much used one fender and a few other pieces and the basic shell, but it says new quarter panels, new one-piece floor. It's mini tub. The springs are moved in. It's got a 295 tire on the back, a 9-inch Ford with 410s. That's pretty steep. It has a Blueprint 383 engine that's rated, I'm rounding up, a couple horsepower, 440 horse, 440 torque, and a TKO 600. So at least you got an overdrive to help with the 410 gear in the back for cruising. And I'm just walking around and thinking, and he's just like me. He's showing me everything that's wrong with it, which is exactly what I do. If you come look at something I got, I'm going to show you where I made a mistake or things I don't like. Or, the positive sells itself. The negative stuff is funny because we're walking around the car. He painted it and everything in his garage. He says, this is where my arm hit the lift. He was painting it under the lift and made it run. I mean, the paint isn't perfect, but it's perfect for me because, it's okay to lean on it or touch it. Or, it's just real. It's usable. It's not some museum piece. But it's, I have to point out the flaws. It looks pretty good even from where I'm sitting right now. So it was a rare day when I walked around and liked it. Now, I've mentioned in the past, growing up, I'm on my bicycle in my parents' driveway, staring at my brother's 55 Chevy. Now, his was a Post, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was from the picture. And this is a hard top. I never pictured myself with a hard top. If you don't know the difference, a hard top, when you roll both windows down, you have a giant opening. Whereas a Post, you have a solid post and the door has a door frame. These doors don't have door frames. And these have little flippers that open and close to seal off the top of the door, which need work. They're there, they just don't always work. So my love for 55 Chevy started early. And I only recently got the 56 wagon, and that's cool in its own right, but in my brain, I always thought I'd own a 55 Post. Well, this is going to have to be close enough. So, in our conversation in my driveway, he mentioned that he would sell it and would like to start another project. He's already had a big block Chevy that he's ready to put in something, and he was ready to part with it because he builds them and sells them eventually, apparently. Again, I'm just learning about it as we went. So I watched him drive away, and, in my brain, it hadn't even clicked yet that, while it was a sale, there's no way I had the money for it. Wasn't going to happen. And then with a little bit of soul searching, my son is 11 years old. He needs to be that little kid like I was in the driveway, exposed to automotive things other than my stagnant projects that just sit here. He's at that age where he needs to be out riding in it and, going to car shows, whatever it's going to take to, see if he's interested in cars. You don't know. He doesn't have to be. I won't force him. He has a lot of opportunity if he wants to learn, or he can go his own way. I said that from the start. Just because I like it doesn't mean he likes it. I made choices growing up. My dad was let's just call him a gunsmith. And an excellent shooter. I didn't take advantage of that opportunity, and now he's gone, and all that knowledge, I was out doing my own thing. I was into cars. I mean, I did share a lot of stuff with him, shooting and stuff like that, but it wasn't, I didn't take advantage of everything that happened. So I made my choice, and my son can make his choice. But however, I just want to not have all these years click by while I, wish I was working on my projects, but in reality, I'm standing over at the bench building transmissions most of the time for other people. And that doesn't finish my projects. So I decided the only way I could fund it, if I could swing it, is to sell a few of my projects. Because, again, this is a want, not a need. But the money can't come out of the household, so I've scrimped and saved and built my cars over years. I had to part with a couple, so I am now in the negative 2 Novas, my 71 and 72 Nova. The 72 is already gone. I delivered it. The 71 is sitting over the 55 right here, and it will go to a good home. Now, both of them went to friends, so they didn't really go out of my life. I'll still get to participate in them, almost like owning them. I'll probably even get to go for a ride in them, so that worked out. There was no advertising, no message, a couple phone calls, and it was done. I had already talked to the owner of the 55, and he was willing to sell it rolling without the motor and transmission. But in the end, that makes it another project. So I made sure I could buy it turnkey. Now, I've only ever bought, other than stock vehicles, but any hot rods. My first car, my 70 Chevelle SS396, I drove it home. And with a little tweaking, I drove it. You gotta, even at 15, I still had to make it my own. And this will be no different. But it runs. I trailered it home because I had to, it wasn't registered and all that stuff. So anyway, I trailered it home, but it's roadable. I registered it yesterday, and my son is super excited. Tonight I'm going to take him to soccer practice in it. It's a beautiful night, and he gets his first experience riding in it. I had to throw some seat belts in it now. I would prefer having a shoulder belt instead of just a lap belt. But I have to do some engineering on that. I don't want it to be a strangulation device either, because there's no B-pillow. It's it's not a post car, it's a hard top. So it came with a couple lap belts, and it was easy to bolt them to the Pro Car seats that are in there. So, and he's a long way from the dash. And, it's not, by law, it doesn't need them. This is just, me being a dad, and it's a good idea. I don't want to really ride around too much without seat belts either. I did, however, when I unloaded it off the trailer Monday, take it for a short spin, and was really impressed with the Blueprint 383. I was not expecting it to, I figured it would be numb. I've always had big blocks and lots of power. This thing's, pretty impressive for what's a fairly heavy car. But the 410s help a lot too, but it was impressive. So I have a lot of work to do to it. I looked it all over, and I spent an hour this morning just tweaking a few things, like to get the hood open and shut was an act of Congress. So, a few minutes of tweaking, a little bit of lube, a few shims here and there. Now I can open and close the hood. And that will continue throughout the whole car. There's nothing, the guy did an awesome job. I don't want anything to be taken that I'm belittling anybody's work, but even if I went and bought a brand new one, if you could do that, I'd still take it home and make it my own. So, whatever, floor mats, all that stuff. But it has some things I want to change. I don't know if I'm probably going to change the gearing. Probably put a different drive shaft in. I got to put a drive shaft loop in it. The bell housing I originally went and bought, which caused this whole thing, I'm going to put in this car. It has an aluminum bell housing, and if you're going to do any spirited driving, you don't want that. I want to protect my feet. So it needs some sort of traction device in the back because it'll wheel hop. I have a set of old slapper bars, or I might just go ahead and do some kind of Caltrack setup. So, with a few tweaks, this thing could be pretty fast. That's not what we're going for. We're not going for race car here, but it's okay on its own. But it's got all new chrome. It's got good bones. The interior is nice, and in the future, as I work on it, front to back over the winter, I will be going over. We'll all get a good look at what it's made out of. But it has coilovers in the front, aftermarket A-arms. It's, like I say, it's pretty cool. Mini tubs. It checked a lot of the boxes of if I was going to build a 55, if I had one, and my wagon's going to be no different. I'm going to move the springs in. I'm going to put a big tire under it. It's very similar. So it's rare when, at least for me, when I see something and I actually like it. But I decided even yesterday to go ahead and insure it and register it. Even though it's October, I'm going to get maybe a month of driving out of it. But it'll give me a month. Even the road test the other day, it took me a couple miles to get used to it. The accelerator pedal on these is hinged on the floor, and you got to push the top of it. Unlike most all the throttle pedals you've been pushing for the last 20 or 30 years, that you push the bottom, this one you push the top. So that took a little getting used to. The shifter handle and the TKO 600 that has a really short handle on the transmission, and it's slightly back for me a little bit, so I'll probably put a different handle on it because, as you know, if you don't know, I dabble in her shifters, so I have lots of handles, and it would probably benefit. Even on my Model A, I have a TKO 500. Now, TKO 500 and a TKO 600, externally you can't tell the difference other than the tag. The only difference is the gearing. The 500 is a wider ratio, so the gears are slightly weaker. So they only rated at 500, only at 500. And this is a close ratio transmission, so it's rated at 600 foot-pounds of torque. The TKOs are fading out. They're actually, you'll see them disappear eventually, I would imagine, because it's been replaced with the TKX. The TKO 5 and 600s were plagued with, they're really hard to shift, somewhat over 5,500 RPM, where the TKX claims it'll shift at 8,000. And they're not talking power shift, and I think if you power shift it, it may go either way. So I probably won't do it, at least with the current drive shaft and no drive shaft loop combination. And pinion angle this has, I don't see myself power shifting it a whole lot, but I only got to get through a month, and that will tell me what I want to fix and what I can live with. So now you're up to date. I'm sorry, it's Wednesday. Usually I put out a video Monday or Tuesday and then one by the weekend. But it's been way too much going on. I hauled my boat home this weekend. The trailer I got from my brother-in-law. My deck boat is a very difficult boat to trailer. I just guessed at what I needed. I didn't adjust a thing. I knew I was shopping for a bunk trailer. We were talking about that. And man, it clears everything by an inch, but it fit right on. And I brought it home. Then it's out in the yard. My son started scrubbing it yesterday. It sits in the fresh water that feeds water to the city of Portland, and into the chain of lakes where I'm above it a little bit, but it flows into Sebago Lake, which is eventually the Portland Water District, and feeds all them. And that is some of the cleanest water in America. Still, when you set a boat in it all summer, it gets pond scum on it. And over the years that dries up, so my boat was brown on the bottom where it should be white. And we pressure washed it at first yesterday, and then we started scrubbing on it, and he's got the back of the boat white. He's charging me by the hour, so no worries there. Anyway, that's my story. In the future, we'll have lots of 55 content. I'm glad you got to come along on the journey of the 71. Pretty much got complete other than the interior. Does run and drive. The 72, I bolted 9 transmissions in it and sold them all. So we did a lot of Turbo 400 content. And yes, I took the transmission out of it and it's sitting over there. That did not go with the deal. The guy that got it, my friend, I had already built him a Turbo 400, so he had one for it already. And, you know, those cars are just not here, but they're not gone forever, so. I also took in trade on the 72 Nova. Yeah, I took in trade a 36 Plymouth Coupe Pro Street project. It has a narrow Dana 60, which follow along. I originally got that narrow Dana 60 from my buddy Charlie, who is getting the other Nova. It's all intertwined. And the 36 Coupe is definitely going to be roddy. I'm not going to paint it. It's rough. I'll give you a look at that too. I got it covered in the top right now, but it's got, you know, steamroller tires and little ones on the front. I need to do lots of work to it. It's basically a frame and a body and hopes and dreams. So I was not expecting to have the coupe, but in what I want to accomplish, I want a street-driven car with a roll cage, an 850 cert roll cage. And this one, the body still lifts off. The 72 Nova had a 6-point cage in it, which is not enough to go 850 in the quarter mile. And it had a really nice 6-point cage in it. It was paining me to cut it out of there and start over. And Plymouth is going to be easy. I can mock it all up, take the body off, weld it all up, do a bunch of tin work. Doesn't have to be fancy, I think. And who's got a 36 Plymouth Coupe Pro Street with a roll cage, and God knows what I'll put for motor in it. So probably some type of Turbo LS. Who knows? So while we got rid of some content, we created a lot more. So later on this afternoon, I'll be happily motoring along with my son. I hope he has a great time. And someday he watches this video, he realizes sometimes you got to sacrifice here to gain there. So, and I mean, let's face it, this is mostly for me, but my underlying theme was to, make it about him too. So, thanks for watching. Keep following along. Catch you in a couple days.